That's right, I can add it. I will not approve this. This is outrageous.
Sir, this is my rightful pay.
This simply isn't right.
What do you mean it's not right? I am not paying this.
Sir, please calm down.
A hard-working black man walks into a bank to deposit his paycheck, only to have the teller rip it apart and call it fake, sparking a humiliating chain of racist abuse. What begins as silence and shame at home, with his wife's anger and his daughter's heartbreaking question, transforms into resistance as he files complaints, confronts executives, and gains allies. Whispers of injustice spread, fueling protests that swell into a movement shaking the city. While the corrupt branch manager mocks him, the truth leaks out, forcing the bank into panic as the crowd demands accountability. Poetic justice strikes when the manager is publicly fired, the entire branch shut down, and the once powerful institution collapses under the weight of its arrogance. Through dialogue heavy with pain, defiance, and truth, the story becomes not just about one man's fight, but a community's stand against systemic racism, proving that dignity, once spoken aloud, can topple even the tallest towers. The automatic doors of Capital First Bank slid open with a hush. Marcus Wright stepped inside, adjusting the collar of his faded button-down. The lobby gleamed marble floors, chrome fixtures, cold air whispering from vents. His boots clicked steady.com, purposeful. At the counter, a teller, in a red blazer, looked up. Her nameplate read Karen Miller. She forced a smile that cracked before it reached her eyes. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you?" Marcus placed his check on the counter. "Deposit into my checking account." Karen glanced at the paper. The numbers made her blink. Her eyes darted from the check to Marcus's face. "Where did you get this?" "My employer," Marcus answered, tone even. Her smile thinned. "What do you do for work?" "I'm a structural engineer. Contract just wrapped. That's my final payment." Karen chuckled softly, not warmth, but disbelief. "This is a lot. For someone like..." She stopped herself. Marcus's jaw tightened. "Someone like what?" Karen ignored him. She held the check up toward the light, scanning for invisible ink. Then she waved over another teller. "Hey, could you come look at this?" A young man in glasses leaned over, whispering. Marcus caught fragments. "To clean. Fake account." "You sure?" The whisper spread. 3 tellers, then the assistant manager. All eyes converged on Marcus. The bank lobby, once filled with the casual shuffle of customers, now buzzed with tension. Karen spoke loudly enough for others to hear. "Sir, I think this check is fraudulent." "It isn't," Marcus said firmly. She smirked. "We see this a lot. People trying to pass off fake payroll checks. Happens every week." Marcus leaned closer. His voice was controlled, clipped. "Run the numbers. Call the issuing company. You'll see it's real." Karen's lips curled. "No need. I can already tell." Her fingers tightened. With a sudden rip, she tore the check clean in half. The sound was sharp, final. Gasps filled the lobby. A man waiting in line muttered, "Damn," but quickly lowered his head when Karen glanced around. Marcus froze. His chest burned. His pulse thundered in his ears. He stared at the torn halves on the counter. Karen tilted her chin. "Nice try. Now, if you'd kindly leave, you just destroyed my paycheck," Marcus said, voice low, shaking with contained fury. Karen shrugged. "If it was real, you can just ask your boss for another one. Unless you made it yourself." The assistant manager snickered. Marcus's hands trembled. He slid the shredded pieces toward himself, folding them carefully, tucking them into his pocket like evidence of a crime. His eyes locked on Karen's, not pleading, not broken, but cold with a fury that promised memory. Silence stretched. Nobody stepped in. Nobody defended him. Marcus turned, boots heavy on marble. Each step echoed like a verdict. He pushed through the glass doors, the cool wind outside slapping his face. Narration cut in like a blade. It wasn't the paper they tore. It was the presumption of his honesty. The right to walk in with dignity and walk out whole. One check, ripped apart. One man, made into a suspect by skin alone. Marcus gripped his pocket. Rage smoldered. The story had only just begun. Marcus didn't walk far. His boots carried him back through the revolving doors, straight past the lobby murmurs, straight to the frosted glass office marked Branch Manager, Daniel Thompson. He pushed the door open. Inside, Daniel Thompson, a middle-aged man with slicked back hair and a polished gray suit, sat behind a wide mahogany desk. His smile was artificial, practiced for boardrooms, not for dignity. "Mr. Wright, is it?" Thompson said smoothly. What seems to be the problem? Marcus dropped the torn check halves onto the desk. The problem is your teller just destroyed my paycheck. A real check. From my employer. She called it fake without even running it. Thompson tapped the halves with one manicured finger. Yes. Karen mentioned something about irregularities. Marcus's voice sharpened. Irregularities. It was valid. You had no right to rip it up. Thompson leaned back, folding his hands across his stomach. Sir, you must understand. We're trained to detect fraud. These things happen. It's policy. Policy. Marcus's jaw tightened. Show me where your policy says a teller can destroy someone's paycheck before verifying it. The manager's smile didn't falter. No need to get agitated. These mistakes happen. You'll just get another check. Marcus's chest burned. Do you hear yourself? That money was mine. You didn't even look at the issuing company. You saw me, saw my skin, and decided I couldn't earn it. The manager's eyes flicked toward the glass wall. Outside, tellers leaned in, laughing in hushed tones. Through the slight crack of the office door, Marcus caught whispers. Another scammer thought he could cash $1 million check at our bank. Should have called the cops. Their laughter stung sharper than the tear of paper. Marcus straightened. Do you hear them? That's what they think of me. Because you set the tone. Thompson's smirk spread wider. Now, Mr. Wright, don't make this into something it isn't. You people have a habit of dramatizing every inconvenience. The words landed heavy. You people. Marcus's fists clenched, but his voice was steel. Play that back for yourself. Do you realize how much history sits in those words? The manager waved a hand, dismissive. Look, I don't have time for lectures. The teller acted in good faith. It's unfortunate, but it ends here. Unless you'd like me to call security. Marcus's chest rose and fell. He stared down at the halves of his check, fragments of his labor, months of late nights, sweat poured into steel beams and concrete, now treated like confetti. His voice dropped low, almost a growl. This doesn't end here. Not for me. Not for you. Thompson's smirk cracked, just slightly. Are you threatening me? I don't need to threaten you, Marcus said, pocketing the torn check. You already did the damage. All I have to do is show the world what you did. For the first time, silence settled. Thompson's eyes narrowed. Behind his mask of arrogance, unease flickered. Marcus stepped back, opening the office door. The tellers straightened, pretending they hadn't been eavesdropping. Their laughter evaporated into thin, guilty air. He walked past them without a word, out into the lobby. Customers stared, some curious, some ashamed. Not one spoke. Narration cut in cold. The office was not just a room, it was a stage. On that stage, his dignity had been mocked, reduced to a punchline, and the audience clapped in silence. Every chuckle, every shrug, every look away, another link in the chain of betrayal. Oppression thrives not in the hands of one abuser, but in the silence of many. Marcus pushed through the doors again, into the street, anger settling deeper in his bones. The fight was no longer about a paycheck. It was about survival in plain sight. The bank lobby hummed with a strange, heavy silence. Marcus lingered near the glass doors, his hands buried in his pockets. The halves of his ruined paycheck folded like wounds against his thigh. Eyes followed him. Customers in line shifted uneasily. Some avoided looking at him entirely. Others met his gaze for a flicker, then looked away. Marcus turned sharply toward them. His voice cut across the marble floor. You all saw what she did. You saw him back her up. And you stay quiet. The line shuffled. A white man in a suit coughed into his hand. A mother pulled her teenage son closer. Nobody spoke. Finally, a young woman whispered, barely audible, I'm sorry. Marcus stared at her. Sorry doesn't mean anything if it's whispered into the floor. The woman lowered her eyes. Silence swallowed the space again. From the side, a firm but quiet voice broke through. They've done it before. Marcus turned. A black woman, in her 50s, dressed in a nurse's scrubs, stepped closer. Her eyes carried the weight of years. They did it to me, she said, her voice steady. 3 months ago, my overtime check said it was suspicious. Made me wait 3 hours. I never came back. Marcus studied her face. A quiet bond formed in the unspoken. You didn't fight it, he asked. Her jaw tightened. I was tired, needed to get to my shift. You know how it is. He did. The exhaustion of swallowing humiliation because survival demanded it. Before Marcus could answer, a sharp voice cut in. Sir. 2 security guards approached, their uniforms stretched tight over their frames, badges glinting. One gestured toward the door. We're going to have to ask you to leave. You're disturbing customers. Marcus's chest rose with restrained fury. Disturbing. I was the one humiliated. I was the one whose check got ripped in half. And you're removing me. The taller guard crossed his arms. You've made your point. Let's not escalate this. The older nurse's voice broke in, quiet but firm. He didn't do anything wrong. The guards ignored her. Their eyes stayed locked on Marcus. The customers watched, still silent, still complicit, some sympathetic, some indifferent, none brave enough to step forward. Marcus exhaled. Slowly, deliberately, he stepped back, raising his hands slightly. Fine, I'll leave. But know this. His eyes swept the room. Every one of you saw it happen, and every one of you said nothing. The room felt smaller, heavier. Shame flickered across some faces. Still, no one spoke. Marcus turned and walked out, the guards following him to the threshold before stopping short. The cold outside air struck him like a slap, but also like a release. The nurse followed him to the sidewalk. Don't let them bury this, she said quietly. Marcus looked at her. The anger in his chest sharpened into resolve. I won't. Narration carved through the moment. Oppression isn't only built on the cruelty of the powerful, it's built on the silence of the crowd. A silence that feels like safety but tastes like betrayal. Today, the silence had been loud enough to choke him, but tomorrow, his voice would break it. Marcus walked away, each step carrying the weight of every eye that had looked down, every tongue that had stayed still, and every truth that begged to be spoken. Marcus drove home in silence, the city blurring past his windshield. The steering wheel groaned beneath his grip. He could still hear the rip of the paper, the laughter bleeding through the office door, the word, "you people," when he pulled into the driveway. His wife Alicia was already waiting on the porch, arms crossed, eyes sharp. What happened? She demanded the second he stepped out of the car. Marcus hesitated. The teller. She ripped up my check. Alicia's face hardened. She what? Called it fake. Said I made it up. The manager backed her up. Alicia's voice rose. And you walked out. You let them do that to you. Marcus's chest tightened. What was I supposed to do? Cause a scene. They had security breathing down my neck. Every customer just watched like I was on trial. Alicia stepped closer, her eyes burning. No, you fight back. You don't let them humiliate you and walk away. Do you know what that tells our daughter? That they can spit in your face and you'll just swallow it. Marcus's voice cracked under pressure. I was holding myself together, Alicia. If I snapped, if I shouted you know how fast cops would have been called, how fast they'd paint me as dangerous. I barely got out of there with my dignity. The screen door creaked. Their daughter Maya stood in her pajamas, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She looked between them, confused. Daddy, her small voice cut through the air. Why can't you just go to the bank like other dads? Marcus froze. The question pierced deeper than any insult at the bank. Alicia's hand went to her mouth. Tears, WELLED. Marcus crouched down to Maya's height. His voice trembled. Sweetheart, sometimes people don't treat us fair, not because of what we did, but because of who we are. Maya frowned. That's not fair. No, Marcus whispered, his throat tight. It isn't. Maya hugged him, tiny arms wrapping around his neck. Then you should make them stop. Her words struck like a commandment. Out of the mouths of children, truth arrived without fear. Marcus held her close, his body trembling. He looked up at Alicia. Her anger had softened, replaced with sorrow, and something else. Expectation. He stood, lifting Maya into his arms. His voice steadied. This isn't just about me anymore. I'm not letting them bury it. Alicia wiped her cheek, nodding. Good, because if you don't, they'll do it to the next man, and the next, and maybe one day. To her, narration cut like steel. Rage is heavy when carried alone, but rage becomes resolve when it belongs to a family, to a generation, to a people. What began as humiliation was now a seed, and that seed had no choice but to grow. Marcus kissed his daughter's forehead, set her gently back on the porch, and walked inside. His next steps would not be silence. Marcus sat at the kitchen table long after Maya had gone to bed. His laptop screen glowed against the dark. A blank postbox waiting. The torn halves of his paycheck lay beside the keyboard like evidence. Alicia leaned on the counter, arms folded. You gonna keep staring at it, or are you gonna do something? Marcus exhaled. Once I put this out there, there's no taking it back. My job could see it. People could twist it. They already twisted it. Alicia snapped. They turned you into a criminal in front of strangers. You think silence will protect you. Silence is what they count on. Marcus nodded slowly. His fingers began to move. Post-draft. Today, at Capital First Bank, a teller ripped my paycheck in half. She called it fake without even verifying. The manager backed her. Security treated me like the criminal. This wasn't about policy. It was about skin. I worked for every cent of that check. I walked out with nothing but these torn pieces. This is what racism looks like when it's dressed in a suit and tie. He attached 2 photos, one of the torn check on the table, the other of himself holding the pieces in his hand. His face was stone, his eyes tired but unbroken. He hit post. The internet lit like dry brush meeting fire. Within an hour, the post had thousands of shares. Comments poured in, supportive voices. This is disgusting. Name the bank. I work in HR, and I've seen this pattern before. They always assume fraud when the customer's black. Stay strong, brother. Don't let them erase you. Hostile voices. Race card again. Bet the check was fake. Stop crying, victim. Banks have to protect themselves. He probably forged it and is lying now. Marcus scrolled through them, his jaw tightening. Alicia read over his shoulder. Look at the support, Marcus. People believe you. And look at the hate, he muttered. Let them spew, Alicia said firmly. Every word they write proves your point. On Twitter, the hashtag ripped check racism trended by dawn. Video fragments surfaced. A customer had recorded Karen's raised voice, Marcus's calm insistence, and the final rip. The sound spread like a gunshot across feeds. One commenter wrote, that sound is centuries of prejudice tearing dignity apart. Others debated in heated threads. User 1, he should have just left and asked for another check. What's the big deal? User 2, the deal is they destroyed his money without proof. Would they do that to a white man in a suit? User 3, of course not. They assumed guilt because of his skin. End of story. Exploded into thousands of replies, allies arguing with racists, strangers dissecting Marcus's life without knowing him. Marcus rubbed his eyes, exhaustion pulling at him. Feels like I'm on trial again. Except now the jury is the whole internet. Alicia put a hand on my shoulder. Then let the truth be your evidence. By the next day, local news picked it up. A reporter's voice on TV. A viral post alleged racial discrimination at a downtown branch of Capital First Bank. The bank has yet to respond. The post, shared more than 50,000 times, showed one paycheck and accusations of humiliation. Outside his window, Marcus, a neighbor, glanced up from his phone, then looked at him with new eyes. Wind traveled faster than wind. His phone buzzed nonstop. Strangers messaged him. Thank you for speaking out. The same thing to me last year. I stayed quiet. You gave me courage. Expose them. Don't back down. Marcus sat heavy in his chair. The support lifted him, but the hate clung like chains. Narration sliced through. Injustice doesn't die in silence. It multiplies. To speak is to risk scorn, but to stay silent is to suffocate. In the digital square, his humiliation became testimony. The same crowd that once stared in silence now chose sides in public, and the world was watching. Marcus closed the laptop at last. His eyes burned, but his resolve sharpened. They wanted me to walk away invisible, he said quietly. Now, they can't look away. Alicia kissed his temple. Good, let them choke on the truth. The streets outside Capital First Bank swelled with voices. By noon, the sidewalks overflowed with BAFTAs pressed shoulder to shoulder, signs lifted high. Racism is not policy. Respect our work. Respect our worth. Justice for Marcus Wright. Chants shook the downtown glass towers. No justice, no peace. Hands off our checks. Marcus stood at the edge of the crowd, the sound vibrating in his chest. He had never seen his name on posters, never heard strangers shout for him. It was overwhelming, terrifying, humbling, all at once. Alicia squeezed his hand. They're here for you. He nodded, throat dry. Inside the branch, blinds were drawn tight. In the executive office, branch manager Daniel Thompson paced. His phone buzzed nonstop with calls from headquarters. On speakerphone, voices clashed. Contain this immediately. Do not make a statement yet. Legal says, deny everything. Thompson rubbed his temples. It's spiraling out there. There are cameras on every corner. Another executive snapped, then shut it down. Call the police if you have to. Fear rippled in his tone, though he tried to mask it with authority. Outside, Marcus was ushered toward a small stage set up by organizers. The microphones stood waiting. A young activist introduced him. This is Marcus Wright, a man who came in with a paycheck and walked out with humiliation. But he didn't stay silent. He fought back. and that's why we're here. Applause surged, chants rising again. Marcus stepped forward, palms sweating. He looked at the sea of faces: students, workers, parents, elders, black, white, brown, all mixed together. He gripped the mic. His voice trembled at first. I didn't come here to be a leader. I came here because I was humiliated for daring to cash the money I earned. The crowd hushed, leaning in. I stood there while they tore up my check. I heard them laugh in the office. I heard you people thrown at me like a curse. And the worst part, everyone saw, and nobody spoke. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Marcus steadied his voice, stronger now. This isn't just about one bank. This is about every door slammed in our faces, every assumption that we don't belong in certain places, with certain money, in certain neighborhoods. I carried that humiliation home to my wife, to my daughter, and she asked me, why can't her daddy just go to the bank like everyone else? His voice cracked, but he pressed on. I don't want her to grow up swallowing silence. I don't want her to inherit this weight. That's why I'm standing here. That's why we're all standing here, to say enough. Applause roared, chants swelling again. Inside the office, Thompson listened through the blinds. He sneered, dramatic. He muttered, "Dot." Another executive's voice crackled through the speakerphone. Do you hear that, crowd? This isn't going away. If we don't act, our stock will nosedive. Thompson barked. We can't cave to one man's theatrics. But panic threaded his tone. The crowd outside surged louder as police arrived, lining the street with barriers. Officers stood shoulder to shoulder, batons at their hips. Protesters raised their hands, chanting, "Don't shoot, don't shoot." Marcus stayed on the stage, microphone shaking in his grip. He raised his other hand high. We're here in peace. We're here for truth. Don't let them paint us as violent when all we're asking for is dignity. The tension was neck. Cameras flashed. News crews broadcast live. Back inside, Thompson slammed the blinds shut. They're making me the villain. I've given 30 years to this bank, and now I'm the face of racism. Another exec hissed, "You are the face right now. Do you understand? If you go down, you're taking the rest of us with you." Thompson's face reddened. This is a witch hunt. He's a liar, a fraud. But even as he said it, his hands shook. Outside, Marcus lowered the mic. The chants carried without him now. Strangers hugged each other. Drums pounded from somewhere in the back. A grandmother in a wheelchair raised her fist. Narration cut in. It wasn't Marcus alone anymore. The story had leaped from his throat into theirs. And once a story becomes collective, it cannot be buried. It becomes a storm. Suddenly, a young protester ran forward, holding up her phone. It's trending everywhere. Hashtag fire Thompson. Hashtag ripped check racism. They're losing control. Alicia looked at Marcus. They're cornered. He nodded slowly, chest heavy. Poetic justice doesn't wait forever. It's coming. The bank's glass walls rattled under the chant of hundreds of voices. Inside, Thompson sat frozen at his desk. His phone buzzed again. He didn't pick it up. The voices outside grew louder, thunder crashing against glass. Narration sliced sharp. For years, arrogance had been his armor. But arrogance is paper-thin when the world decides to watch. And the world was watching now. Marcus stood tall on the stage, shoulders squared. He raised his voice one last time over the crowd. This isn't about me. This is about every man and woman told they don't belong in the places they've earned. Today, we tell them we belong everywhere our work takes us, everywhere our worth carries us. No more silence. The crowd erupted, fists raised, voices united. The storm had broken, and the bank was drowning. Morning light spilled across downtown. The protests had stretched into its second day, larger than before. News vans lined the block, reporters broadcasting live. Headlines blared across screens. Bank manager under fire after racism scandal. Capital first accused of discrimination. Community demands accountability. Marcus stood in the crowd again, no longer trembling. His shoulders bore the weight with steadiness. He wasn't just a customer now. He was a symbol. Inside Capital First's corporate tower, chaos reigned. Executives crowded into a glass-walled boardroom. Phones rang nonstop. Legal counsel's voice was sharp. "We've confirmed multiple employee accounts. The teller admits." Thompson directed her to destroy the check. She said he used the words, "You people. It's indefensible." The regional director slammed his palm on the table. "Then we cut him loose. Today." Another voice warned, "It won't be enough. The public wants blood. They want the whole branch purged." Silence fell, heavy as stone. Down in the branch, Daniel Thompson sat at his desk, his tie hung loose, eyes bloodshot. His phone buzzed with unanswered calls. A knock came at the door. 2 security officers entered, flanking the regional director. Daniel, the director said coldly, "You're finished here. Pack up, effective immediately." Thompson shot up, red-faced. "You can't, 30 years, and you dumped me because of a mob outside." The director's eyes hardened. "We're not dumping you because of them. We're dumping you because you're exactly who they say you are." Thompson's mouth opened, but no words came. His desk, once a symbol of power, was just wood now. His hands trembled as he sank into the chair. Outside, the crowd shifted as news spread. Reporters pushed forward, microphones raised. Capital First has announced the termination of branch manager Daniel Thompson. Effective immediately. The cheers rolled like thunder. Fists shot into the air. Chants echoed. Justice served. Fire them all. Marcus stood still in the noise, Alicia beside him. For a moment, he closed his eyes. Narration cut in. Poetic justice rarely arrives in one stroke. It comes piece by piece, like bricks pulled from a wall until the structure collapses. The first brick had fallen. Thompson was escorted out through a side door. Protesters spotted him, boos erupting. Someone shouted, "How does it feel now?" Cameras flashed, recording his disgrace. He tried to shout back, but the noise swallowed him. His face, twisted with fury, looked small on every screen. Later that evening, Marcus sat with Alicia and Maya on the porch. The air was calm after the storm. Alicia said softly, "He's gone. Fired. You did that." Marcus shook his head. "We did that. Every voice out there did that. I just started it." Maya tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, are they going to listen now?" Marcus looked at her, then out at the quiet street. "They're listening because we made them, but we can't stop here." Narration. Because justice is not a moment, it is a movement. And movements do not rest after one victory. They rise and rise until silence is no longer possible. The porch light flickered on as night fell. Inside the city, the bank's glass tower loomed, but its shine had dimmed. The storm was not over, but the first crack had split wide. By the next week, Capital First Bank was unraveling. News outlets played the footage of Marcus's speech on repeat. Clips of Thompson being escorted out became viral fodder. Memes that burned the bank's image beyond repair. Stock tickers told the story in numbers. Capital First shares dropped 12% in 3 days. Lawsuits piled up. Civil rights groups filing in droves. Narration. When a system survives on silence, noise is lethal. And Marcus had given them noise they couldn't mute. Inside headquarters, panic meetings stretched late into the night. Executives argued like cornered wolves. "We've already fired Thompson. Not enough. Public trust is gone. Then we sacrificed the whole branch. We can't." Closing means admitting guilt. Staying open means bleeding out on live television. The decision, grim and undeniable, was made. Capital First's downtown branch would close permanently. Every employee dismissed. When the news broke, the community swarmed again. Protesters cheered in the streets, signs waving, "Shut racism down. Closed because we spoke up." Reporters shoved microphones at Marcus. "How do you feel about the entire branch being shut down?" He paused, his voice calm but steady. "It's not about how I feel. It's about accountability. When people abuse power, they lose it. That's all." The clip spread like wildfire, a new soundbite for a new movement. Meanwhile, Thompson sat in his dim living room, TV flickering across his face. Every channel showed his downfall. His phone buzzed with messages. Old colleagues cutting ties. Neighbors whispering. His reputation shredded. He hurled the remote against the wall. "I gave them everything, and they throw me out for him. For them." Silence answered. Narration. For men like Thompson, power is air. Strip it away, and they suffocate. Rage fills the lungs, but rage is not oxygen. It burns and leaves nothing. Back at the right home, Maya watched the news with wide eyes. She turned to her father. "Daddy, did they really close the bank?" Marcus nodded slowly. "Yes, they did, because they were mean to you." He exhaled, "Because they were wrong. And enough people saw it to say no more." Maya tilted her head, thoughtful. "So if people say the truth loud enough, bad things have to stop." Marcus's throat tightened. He pulled her into his lap. "That's the hope, baby. That's the hope." Community leaders gathered at Marcus's porch days later. Ministers, activists, students. An elder placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder. "You've lit a fire. This isn't just about a bank anymore. It's about every system that treats us like less. You ready to keep going? Marcus looked at Alicia, then Maya. He felt the weight, but also the strength grown in him. He nodded. I didn't ask for this. I'm not turning. Narration closed in. From one check rose. From one humiliation, a reckoning began. Bank, businesses, boardrooms, all watching now, wary, because one man refused silence, and silence had been their greatest weapon. The down branch stood empty, its glass door locked, its walls dark, a monument not to wealth, but to downfall. The sign still read, Capital First. The people had already renamed it in papers. The bank fell. Months passed. The city had returned to its rhythm, but the echoes of protests still lingered. Murals bloomed on walls downtown. Raised, faces painted, words in bold, we belong everywhere. Justice cannot be ripped apart. At the center of one mural was Marcus's face, not smiling, but resolute. Narration. Symbols are not chosen, they are made. Had not asked to be painted on walls, but when silence breaks, someone's voice becomes the anchor. His head chosen by circumstance, then amplified by truth. Capital First was drowning. Reports surfaced of more discrimination complaints. Customers fled in droves. Within 6 months, the bank announced bankruptcy. Entire floors of their glass tower went dark, offices gutted, furniture auctioned away. The same news anchors who ignored Marcus now declared a financial giant brought down by arrogance and prejudice. Daniel Thompson, meanwhile, faded into obscurity. No bank could hire him. His name was synonymous with disgrace, plastered across search engines forever. Once now avoided, he lived bitterly in silence. Narration. Poetic justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers day after day in the emptiness of a fallen man's life. That was his sentence. To be remembered for what he built, for what he destroyed. For Marcus's life did not become easier overnight. It was different. Strangers stood him on the street to thank him. Parents saved their children, saying, "That's the man who stood up." Alicia watched him walk taller than before, knew something shifted. His sight was gone. One evening, Marcus took Maya by the hand and walked past the third bank branch. The doors were chained shut. Dust-coated glass. Scrawl across the wall read, "Closed racism." Maya tugged his hand. "Daddy, that's bank, isn't it? The one that was mean." "Yes," Marcus said quietly. She looked at the spray paint. It looked small now. Marcus's lips tightened. He knelt beside her. "It was never big, baby, not compared to us." Narration swelled. And there it was, the truth no system can erase. Institutions fall. Injustice collapses. But dignity, once spoken aloud, does not die. It multiplies. It spreads, until even the tallest towers crumble beneath it. Marcus lifted his daughter into his arms. Alicia joined them, their shadows stretching across the cracked pavement. Behind them, the dead bank stood like a carcass. Before them, the city pulsed with life, chance, murals, and possibility. As they walked away, Maya whispered against his ear, "Daddy, I'm glad you didn't stay quiet." Marcus held her close, eyes burning. "Me too, sweetheart, me too." The night air wrapped around them, heavy with memory, light with promise. And for the first time since the check was ripped, Marcus felt unburdened. Narration, final. They had tried to tear his worth apart, but in doing so, they had torn apart themselves. That was justice. Not given, not begged for, made. Marcus woke to the sound of his phone buzzing on the nightstand. The screen flashed with an unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. "Mr. Wright, this is Dana Phillips. I'm an investigative journalist with the Herald. I'd like to talk about your experience at Capital First." Marcus sat up, rubbing his eyes. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Dana said, "because yours isn't the first story I've heard about this bank." That afternoon, they met in a small cafe. Dana carried a recorder and a notebook already half filled. She leaned forward. "Before we start, I need to tell you, I've had 3 other people contact me about this branch. All black, all humiliated over checks they were trying to deposit. Same language, same tone. You sure you want to go on record?" Marcus nodded. "Yes, they tore my check apart like my work was worthless. That can't stay hidden." Dana pressed record. Her questions were sharp, and Marcus's answers poured out. "Walk me through it," she said. "They didn't even verify the check. Didn't call the issuing company." Karen the teller looked at me, looked at the amount, and decided I couldn't have earned it. Exact words. Dana asked. She said, "This is obvious fraud." When I told her to verify, she ripped it in half. The manager backed her up. He even said, "You people always dramatize inconveniences." Dana's eyebrows lifted. Direct quote, direct. She scribbled fast. "This fits a pattern. I've interviewed a college student who had her scholarship check denied here, a nurse whose overtime pay was held, even an older man whose pension check was treated as suspicious. Always the same type of customer." Marcus swallowed. "Always black." "Yes," Dana said firmly. "Always black." Over the next days, Dana gathered voices. She put Marcus on speaker as she called former employees. One ex-teller confessed, her voice shaky. "We were told to flag suspicious checks, but suspicious meant, well, you know, if the customer didn't fit the image, we knew what that meant." Marcus clenched his fist. "So it was policy, not written policy," the ex-teller said quickly. "Unspoken, but we all understood." Another ex-employee added, "The manager bragged about catching scammers, but the only ones he ever bragged about were black." The words hit Marcus like blows, each confirming what he already knew but hated to hear aloud. Days later, Dana published. The headline blazed, "Capital First accused of systemic racism. Customers speak out." The article included Marcus's story, the nurses, the students, the pensioners, screenshots of his viral posts, quotes from ex-staff admitting they were trained to distrust certain customers. The story spread. National outlets picked it up. Commentators debated it on morning shows. Inside Capital First's headquarters, panic brewed. Leaked audio surfaced online. A conference call where executives discussed damage control. Marcus listened to the clip with Alicia at his side. Executive 1, "This right guy is exaggerating. He's milking it for attention." Executive 2, "Doesn't matter. Optics are bad. We need a strategy." Executive 3, "Discredit him. Dig into his past. We'll find something." Marcus's stomach turned. "They're going to smear me." Alicia gripped his hand. "Then you keep standing in the light. They can't smear the truth." The smear came quickly. Online trolls spread fake claims that Marcus had been fired from previous jobs, that he'd been arrested once, a complete fabrication. Memes mocked him. Comment sections roared with venom. But Dana countered with receipts. She published Marcus's spotless employment record, his professional licenses, testimonials from colleagues. The smear unraveled as fast as it spread. Narration cut in cold and precise. Systems built on lies always reach for more lies when exposed, but lies crumble under weight. Truth, once spoken aloud, doesn't go back into silence, and the silence around Capital First had already cracked open. Marcus sat at his kitchen table again, scrolling through messages, some hateful, some grateful, some desperate. One caught his eye. "Thank you. I thought it was just me. I've been too afraid to speak. Now I know I wasn't crazy." Marcus read it twice. His eyes burned. He whispered, more to himself than to Alicia, "This isn't just my fight anymore." And for the first time, he believed it.